There are mosques around the world, very popular, famous mosques that we have. This is in Cairo, Egypt, and they're beautiful structures, and really beautifully put together and everything else, and the historical buildings. Here are another series and sets of mosques that we have in the Maldives, in Somalia, Paris, Uzbekistan, Tibet, Russia. A mosque may be a very beautiful place, beautiful structure, or it could be something that's very basic and, very simple as well. This is in Indonesia, India, Kenya, Turkey, China, and Brunei as well. So you got a number of beautiful mosques across the world. Many of them are tourist attractions as well. People go because of the religious significance. Okay, we have over here the next point. Some details to the zakat, the issue of zakat. We believe all things belong to God. It requires an annual contribution of 2.5% of an individual's saved wealth and assets if it reaches a certain level. Zakat is used to support the poor and needy, orphans and widows, and help those in debt. We mentioned about the fasting as well. Let's go quickly through this right now. Basically, the purpose of fasting is to self-purify yourself. Self-restraint, it teaches you self-restraint. Basically teaches you how to be humble, patient, and many other things as well, besides it being an act of worship ordained by God Himself. Let's go down to this point over here, because we finished the previous ones. Women in Islam, this is an important point. Men and women, of course, we believe are equal before God. Sin is not inherited. The first person to accept Islam as well was a woman. She was the wife of the Prophet, Khadija. May Allah be pleased with her. The Messenger of Allah said, the most perfect in faith amongst believers is he who is best in manner and kindest to his wife. So you might hear some people beating their wives. Again, don't take this as being part of Islam, because it's not part of Islam. We have direct indication from the traditions that state that these people are evil people who are far from Islam. Whereas the ones who are pious, who adhere to Islam, they would never raise their hand on their wife at all. We have the dress code. This is an important thing as well. Of course, in general, both men and women are required to dress up modestly. Now, you can't have someone walking around naked in the street, whether man or woman. This is both inappropriate for men and women. So, of course, modesty in relation to men is a bit different from women. For men in general, to wear loose clothing, they're prohibited from wearing silk or gold. A woman, loose clothing as well. They cover their hair and the entire body except for the face and the hands. The purpose for this is mentioned over here. You can read it over here. The women are not sexualized or valued only for their physical appearance or sexuality, such as what happens in TV ads. Now, whenever you have, for example, an ad for a type of food, or even a gum, or a cigarette, pack of cigarettes, what do you have right away? They put a picture of a woman in a bikini. I mean, that's sexualizing and making the woman as a sexual product, basically. We don't believe in this in Islam. This is absolutely, prohibited. So in order for the woman to be respected for who she is, a woman is required to dress up in a way that, will not provoke, any unwanted desires. Likewise, a man is to do the same thing as well. He's not to dress up, nakedly or in an inappropriate way. Rather, he's to dress up in a proper way to avoid those unwanted desires, so that a person will be able to deal with the next person in an appropriate, wise, just way. We have the family in Islam. Now, of course, Islam, it aims to building a society that is righteous and moral. Now, at the center of this model, we can say, is the family and marriage. So marriage is highly, highly looked upon in Islam. Marriage between two mates, that definition stands between man and woman. For I believe this is the way that a marriage is to be, because a marriage's ultimate purpose is to procreate and for people to continue on living in that sense. And this is likewise in Judaism and Christianity. Sex is only allowed in the wedlock, not out of the wedlock. Now here, this is the interesting point over here. These are 4 misconceptions that I want to address over here. There may be other issues that we can, if you have, we can talk about that later on. The first, all Muslims are Arabs. Islam was spread by the sword. The Quran instructs Muslims to kill non-Muslims, an act referred to as jihad. and Muslim men can marry as many wives as they wish. We'll address these 4 issues over here. Now the first, of course, which I already spoke about during the presentation, all Muslims are Arabs, and this, of course, is false, because we have 82% of the Muslims in the world today are non-Arabs, and only 18% of them are Arabs. So, and also the largest Muslim country in the world today is Indonesia, which is a non-Arab country. So you can put this one easily to rest. Number 2, Islam was spread by the sword. Now Muslims believe that life, honor, property of all citizens are considered sacred. So Islam was not spread by the sword. As God says in the Quran, that there be no compulsion in religion. Now, prior to the Spanish Inquisition, Jews and Christians lived and prospered in Andalusia, or Spain, for centuries under Muslim rule. They were not coerced or harmed in any way. You find many examples throughout the Muslim world, throughout history, likewise. I do suggest that if you want to look through history, don't read historical books that have a bias, because many of them are written in a biased way, at times by Orientalists who basically hate Islam and Muslims. This is a fact as well. So you've got to be careful as to who you read for, basically. And if you look at these things with an open mind, you're going to find clearly that Islam was not spread by the sword, rather by personal choice. And once more, we can give a very clear example of this in Malaysia and Indonesia, where we have that no army had gone there. No Muslim army had ever reached the shores of Indonesia or Malaysia. Yet, today they are the biggest Muslim countries. Why is that? It's on account of a few traders, businessmen, who were from different parts of the Muslim world. They had reached Indonesia and they traded with the people over there. They saw their manners, their etiquette and everything else, and it really appealed to them. And they became Muslim on account of those few who were there. So I mean, it was spread on account of in a non-violent way. The third misconception, that the Quran instructs Muslims to kill non-Muslims. We have in the Quran, God says, whoever kills a human being for other than manslaughter or corruption in the earth, it shall be as if he has killed all mankind. And whoso saves the life of one, it shall be as if he saved the life of all mankind. This verse itself puts this misconception to rest. Now there are some who would misconstrue certain verses in the Quran. Anyone can do this. Even if you go to the Bible or to the Torah, you can take passages, verses, and you can interpret them the way that you want to appear to be, and to put them in a very negative light. You can do that easily with the Bible as well. But it would be unfair. You've got to look at the context from where it was taken from to begin with. Likewise, in the Quran, people take certain verses, they cut it from the verses before it and after it. So when you look at this individual verse, you think, oh, this is really, it causes enmity and hatred. Like this, when you show it individually, it may send the wrong message, yes. But in Islam, and people, many times do not understand this, we cannot take the Quran in our own hands and interpret it the way that we want. We are restricted completely, because for a Muslim to understand the Quran, they've got to go back, and this is a fundamental rule, when we call tafsir, or the exegesis of the Quran. A person is to go back to the traditions of the Prophet, and then understand the Quran in light of the prophetic traditions. As well, he is to take the Quran and the traditions according to how the previous generations understood them. So looking at the companions of the Prophet, we look at how they understood the Quran and the traditions that we have, and we take it only in that light. But for someone to take these things aside, and to take a single verse and then to interpret it to mean that we can kill everyone, this is absolutely erroneous and wrong.